Hey everyone, Laura here. I hope you're having an amazing week. We have some pretty impactful, very big energies that are in place, or in play, I should say, this week. There's first and foremost today's first full moon of the year in its sign of Cancer. Lots of emotions are coming up, but it is this portal through which we can make really significant change, primarily around what is no longer serving us, but also what helps us to feel secure and rooted in our life so that we can experience a greater level of stability and security both inwardly and outwardly. If you want to go into the full moon a little bit deeper, there is a blog that I've got up now. You can go ahead and head over there to get the full reading. Tomorrow, we have another really important change, which are the nodes of destiny moving into the Taurus and Scorpio axis. So if you're not familiar with the nodes of destiny, we have our north node and we have our south node signs and placement. And the north node is where we are encouraged in this lifetime to move towards, the place where we will find the greatest success, the greatest purpose, fulfillment, and really accomplish what our life's purpose is in this incarnation. Whereas our south node is a space that represents our past life or our former lessons. And depending on your school of thought, it could be your most recent past life, which is what I tend to subscribe to. And it represents the area that we've already evolved into. We've already learned lessons and gotten comfortable. The issue with these nodes, not even issue, but the caveat, if you will, is that the north node is the space we're encouraged to move towards, but it's also the space that we don't always feel super comfortable in because it's outside our comfort zone. It's a new lesson. It's an embodiment that can feel pretty foreign to us. So naturally, it can almost feel as though it's inaccessible or we just don't feel comfortable there. But by challenging ourselves and moving into that, we can experience the juiciness that I mentioned, the purpose, the sense of success, evolution. And our south node tends to be where we feel most comfortable. It's familiar. It's, like that old hat or that old blanket that we just instantly feel soothed and comfortable and comforted by. And so it's a place we slide into pretty easily. And if we do that to a fault in this incarnation, we're not moving into that north node placement as heavily, as deeply as we are encouraged to do it. Instead, we're just sort of hanging out in the pool of what we've already learned and mistaking comfort for a sense of security. And sometimes they go hand in hand, but not always, not in those really beautiful moments where we're really being sort of put to the test for those important changes that we need to make. That being said, we also have Aquarius season. I told you this week is major. We have Aquarius season beginning on the 19th, I believe. Trying to keep all these dates. So yes, the nodes of destiny move into the Taurus-Scorpio axis on the 18th, full moon today, the 17th, and then on the 19th, we move into Aquarius season. So it's going to be a season of rebelliousness, of really letting our freak flag fly, being in the embodiment of our most authentic selves and not being overly concerned with what everybody else thinks of what we're doing, how we're doing it, etc. There's also a really beautiful energy of community and altruism that comes with the Aquarius energy. So we're able to step out of just the personal component of that, deep and sometimes funky, spunky authenticity, and also begin to inspire that in others, to get out into our communities, to lend a hand to those that may need it most. So it's a very beautiful switch, and it's a little reprieve, if you will, from the sometimes rigidity and hustle, if you will, of the Capricorn energy. Capricorn energy is fantastic. I love it. We can get a lot done with very little, even if we do have a lot we're juggling. But it's kind of, at least if you're like me, it's a little kind of, I don't know, I think I'm done with it. Let's put it that way. I think I'm ready for more of the breeziness of that Aquarian energy, because though there is this beautiful and really open-hearted care and concern for the greater collective, the community, being of purpose, it's also this very, not so much detached, but just knowing what is important and what isn't. And it gives us a greater freedom to move throughout our day, to just interact with the outside world and even our personal world, our inner world, in a much more fluid and floaty kind of way, if you will. So that's some of the big ticket things that are happening all in the spans of this week. And I'm not even covering some of the others like Mercury retrograde, though there will be a blog up. You can get a little survival guide on the blog. So there's just a lot that is happening. And I feel like it's a really beautiful complement to the message of trust and truth that was coming forward for the channeled message when I tapped into the energy this week. It was this sense of how can we hone in on our truth to show up with our truth front and center. And however that may sort of apply to you, the context obviously is going to be different for us all. But that notion of really tapping into our personal truth, being willing to sit with our personal truth, being willing to express that truth. And that's where the trust element, I feel, really comes in. Again, it's going to come in all around, because even to show up in our truth requires that element of trust. But expressing our truth, whether it's sharing our feelings, whether it is advocating for something or someone, even ourselves, when we express that truth, we have to simply be with the awareness that the trust is present in our hearts, the trust that it's okay to share and express our truth. And even more than that, it's more than, it's more than okay. It's essential. It's needed. Even if we don't get the response that we thought or hoped for, that's really irrelevant. It's more of trusting that this truth deserves to be heard, that it can make a difference. It can make a difference for ourselves. It can make a difference for others around us. It can inspire. It can uplift. It can even change lives. So this notion of allowing trust. Again, not so much trust that, they're going to be okay with our truth, the collective they, that they're going to take our words, take our truth, our expression, well, or take it to heart, or, it's not so much about trust insofar as how it's received, this truth in any form. It's more of trusting ourselves, trusting what our truth is, and trusting that it has its place, it has its medicine, not just for us, but potentially for the outside world as well. And it's just knowing that even if we don't even know who we may have inspired or impacted or, kind of planted a seed within, even if we never know, even if we can't even really pinpoint that there could have been someone, who was impacted by what we are expressing. And hell, even if, we get so much pushback, from various people in our lives around our truth, it's just about trusting that, again, it's out there, it's meant to be out there, it deserves to be out there, it's needed. That's the trust. It's that deeper sort of deeper and more concrete, and yet simultaneously very nebulous trust that allows us to know our truth and express that truth and show up with that truth. So The tarot cards for this week, and I'm just checking my notes here to make sure that I have everything here. So we have the Star card, the Ten of Pentacles, and the Seven of Swords. So this is a week, very big energy, as we talked about, and these cards really represent that the bigness of that energy. The Star card and the Ten of Pentacles, along with this Seven of Swords energy, the overall message that was coming through was simply that our wishes for stability, for the roots and the foundation that we desire in our lives, they come with a little bit of grit. They come from a little bit of that sort of grit and sheer determination. It's not just, us being able to visualize or send a wish or prayer or what have you up to, the universe or whomever, or casting a spell or lighting that candle, all of which is valid. But it's also the way in which we really kind of manhandle things, get our hands dirty, get our knees a little scraped up. And sometimes in doing, we may find that we feel as though, we have to kind of, what is the phrase, the ends justify the means. We can get into this energy of, well, I've got to be a little underhanded. I'm just going to take what it is that I want. There's a way of working with the essence of the Seven of Swords, which is really where that energy comes in, that isn't necessarily so unintegrous, if you will. And that's where that grit comes in. Our dreams, the hope we have for a brighter, more secure, stable future in whatever context that may apply to you, they're attainable, they're accessible. In fact, they're closer than you may even realize. But with that Seven of Swords energy, we want to tap into the grittiness. We want to tap into the getting our hands dirty, getting our knees a little scraped up kind of energy that is us doing the doing. We're not passive participants. We have to be in the thick of it. And we have to also be in awareness of that shadowy component of the Seven of Swords energy, but also ourselves, which is, the tendency to maybe not want to have to struggle or strive or work so much for something, and instead just kind of, do whatever we've got to do to take what it is that we want. Time and place for everything. Not saying that we're perfect individuals and we should, never resort to that, because if you've been around long enough, I believe firmly in the fact that our shadow has sometimes been a necessary quality for our survival, for what we needed to do to survive. But in this sort of context that we're speaking of, chances are it's not really needed. And it would just be us trying to cut corners or skirt some facet of the journey or the building of that foundation of those dreams, that, special thing that we are working towards or really aspire towards, instead of getting in there and doing the work. So the grit, the determination, that steadfast resolve to do and to have and to embody, that greater sense of stability, that greater sense of being grounded, of building something that is going to go the distance. That is where we can work a little more holistically and integrous with the Seven of Swords energy. And it's also coincidentally both through acknowledging the shadowy tendency and finding a better way of, not even a better way, that's not necessarily proper language, a more integrous way of working with that energy. We find that things come together much faster, if you will, because we're doing it from a more integrated whole place. We don't want to deny the shadowy tendency of the card of Seven of Swords and its energy, or ourselves, any more than we want to, just totally sink on into it. When we can acknowledge we have those feelings, we want to cut the corner, we just, wish there was an easy button. When we can acknowledge that feeling of just wanting to take what's ours, methods be damned, we can integrate it back in the fold as we acknowledge, yes, that's a part of me, but that doesn't mean I need to be in embodiment of it. Doesn't mean that that's an appropriate way of expressing or, interacting with this dream I have or whatever you are applying this energy towards. And I can choose to do it in this other way that feels better in this body, feels more integrous. That is when we kind of tap into that golden shadow, as they call it, which is where we really tap into our generative, creative abilities and the talents that we have latent within us. So that sense of attainment and having wishes come true, so prevalent with the star card, and building greater structures of stability and security that allow us to support the life that we want to live, to provide a stable foundation for not just ourselves, but for future generations, like the Ten of Pentacles energy. Is going to come through the wholeness, the integration, and it's going to come through much faster when we can work more holistically, more integrous with the energy of the Seven of Swords. So lots of big players in the week ahead. I encourage you to settle in, to feel the feeling of being in this experience and the energies of this week, and naturally, feel into what sits with this message. Don't swallow it all whole. Take what fits and discard the rest. But I encourage you to head over to the blog. You'll have your Mercury retrograde survival guide. You'll also have the full moon reading. There's a lot of emotions naturally that are coming up with the Cancer full moon, a lot of intuitive pulses. So if you are finding yourself, kind of feeling a little adrift, a little bit like a boat without an oar, you're not alone. But we also have got quite a bit up on the blog to help support you. So I hope this reading helps you navigate all these beautiful energies. Know that there's big shifts ahead. And of course, I want to hear about them. So drop me a line or comment below. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Mwah.